Hello, and welcome to Podcast 1 from me, the Equitable Leader. The idea is that this podcast is going to take you through a few of the basics which might help you, including what a manager is, what a leader is, and what are the differences between the two roles. Why does some of the confusion between the differences lead to potentially poor outcomes for both leaders and those they support? How to change your approach to leadership to try and support diversity, and explain how a good leader is an authentic leader, and how to support your leaders to be their true selves, and how that in turn can support and inspire others. We hope you enjoy this first podcast and would love to hear your feedback. So the first thing that we need to cover is actually explaining what a manager is. If you look towards the dictionary, the definition that you'll find is a person who's regarded for their ability to control or administer resources. So we're typically thinking there of factories, systems, and processes. So therefore, the individual who would be described as a manager is somebody who is trusted with the day-to-day running and supervision of systems, resources, and processes to achieve targets. Managers are therefore target-driven. You can see how the interchangeability between the words manager and leader can therefore come to cause some real confusion, because when we think of managers, we typically think of those holding clipboards and assessing the profitability and targets of the work being done. So, okay, then what's a leader? So again, if we start with a dictionary definition, it's a person who leads or commands a group, organisation, or even a country. At the most basic level, leaders are individuals who are trusted with the supervision of people and their behaviours in order to achieve a culture. Their job is therefore to follow the strategic direction of a group or organisation and lead those people towards that value via the individual's hearts and minds, developing their culture and the behaviours exhibited in order to get results. So when directly comparing leaders versus managers, it can be really confusing because people often use the terms interchangeably and ask one person to do both roles within an organisation. So, though this might be possible for some, in reality, the skills needed to be a manager, which is predominantly an administrative based role, and those for a leader, which is an influencer based role, are often at odds. People rarely feel comfortable switching between those opposing skills, leaving managers to lead people as if they were a system or a resource. People do not respond well to being managed when what they want is to be led. So, how do you solve the management conundrum? Management conundrum is an unclear definition of what the role is that a manager should actually be doing. Is the role within your organisation unclear? Do you want or need an administrator who is target driven? You therefore need a manager. Or should the role be filled by a people leader needed to influence or drive the culture and behaviours of the people in order to deliver results? Often what's needed but not articulated is a dual or unclear role, ensuring confusion from the very beginning. Do they get managed on the admin side of the role and led on their cultural leadership, or more likely managed on both elements of their role, so targets that ignore the more difficult to quantify leadership element? As most companies use these terms incorrectly and interchangeably, clear definition is the only way to solve the management conundrum. So what does a good leader look like? The diverse and correct answer is obviously a good leader can look like anyone physically. So the real question is therefore, what character traits will a good leader exhibit? If we look purely at characteristics, pause for a minute and name some of the positive characteristics you've seen or exhibited that you would consider to demonstrate you or someone else as a good leader. You may have said strong, flexible, charismatic, direct, persistent, or many others. Brilliant. We've now got a template of what good looks like. How can things possibly go wrong? If a good leader can look like anyone, then what does a not good leader look like? When we purely look at characteristics that you would consider a good leader would demonstrate, like in a role description, we can actually perpetuate poor leadership. If a person is stated as being strong, flexible, charismatic, direct, and persistent, as the examples we've just given, the mirror image of those characteristics are immovable, false, obsequious, assertive, and stubborn. So maybe it's less a shopping list of character traits and more something else. How would you define the difference between a good and bad leader? As a leader, we need to accept that we're never able to see or understand the full impact that we have on those we lead. They will never see a true reflection of ourselves. Regardless of our intentions behind the application of our character, which is, after all, our behaviour towards others, we will never be able to experience them for ourselves. The only view we have of ourselves is therefore distorted through an understanding of our own intentions, which are rarely well communicated to those we lead. The phrase, with knowledge comes power, has corrupted the opinion of many within leadership into thinking that we need to withhold information to maintain leadership power, and therefore we impede our ability to explain fully the intentions behind our interactions. So, there's a missing link in leadership. If character alone is not enough to demonstrate good leadership, then what is? What's the missing link that takes us from good leadership character traits and good leadership in practice? The saying walk the talk is often used in leadership circles. What is meant by this is that we're saying you have to have good character, which is one thing, but living it daily is another. It's not so much the characteristics of a leader that makes them effective, which is what we mean by good, more that they are authentic to themselves and their character when leading. The missing link is therefore authentic leadership. Regardless of the specific character traits or skills, without being comfortable in your own leadership style, you will never be the best leader you can be. Here's where we create the leadership problem. The problem is we look for new leaders by searching for a template of behaviours or characteristics from those that have come before. Meaning that if we want diversity in leadership and it's not already present, we will be stating that we want diversity, but defining the need as a narrow set of non-diverse characteristics. This leadership problem then becomes a self-fulfilling vicious cycle as we define leadership as we've seen it before. So we state the characteristics we want to see in our new leaders based on that example. We then seek to employ diverse candidates whose natural style does not fit that template. Then they ultimately fail or have to change themselves in order to succeed, leading to inauthentic leadership, which ultimately fails, therefore proving that only the initial set of characteristics were good and blaming any failure to succeed on the individual. Again, reverting back to divine leadership as the characteristic traits we've seen before. So, how to lead? Any style or leadership characteristic can be viewed positively or negatively by those we lead. If authentically owned and used to lead fairly, the characteristic will be viewed positively. If not, the trait, but the application means the difference between success and failure. A quietly spoken leader can be even more impactful on those they lead than a more traditionally desirable, assertive, and direct colleague in the same role. Traditional leadership trait templates filter out the strength of having a diverse leadership pool within any organization. If you only have a single leadership style template, then only people who respond to that specific style will do well. All your other people will struggle to see themselves as potential leaders and will likely fail to deliver as well as they could with a more diverse pool of leadership templates in operation. Therefore, for any organization to lead well, they must walk the talk on diverse leadership styles, not a one job template fits all approach. Thank you for listening to the first episode of the Equitable Leaders podcast. We hope that you have enjoyed it and that you've taken away the summary of information, which is a manager is someone who supervises systems to deliver processes. A leader is someone who inspires people to deliver, and that using a one style fits all approach to leadership templates means that you're excluding diverse excellence in leadership and individual style of delivery. To be a good leader, you need to be authentic to your natural style, allowing you to succeed through your people. Until the ability to see the strength in diverse leadership traits is recognized, organizations will fail to support everyone or to deliver the best of their people's ability. They may also perpetuate negative stereotypes around their support for diversity, as they will likely fail to support anyone who does not fit their mold. Thank you so much, and we look forward to bringing you episode 2 to help you in your leadership journey.